Hello, BookTube. This is part 2 of my fairy tale reread project for 2026. Over the first weeks of January, I have been devoting myself to rereading Fairy Tale by Hiro Mashima. This episode is going to cover Fairy Tale volumes 19 through 48. So, Fairy Tale is a long running manga series. It lasted 545 chapters, collected in 63 volumes. In the first episode, I mentioned that it lasted for 600 chapters in 63 volumes. I am incorrect. It is 545 chapters. I do not know how the number 600 got embedded in my head, but it got embedded and it really does not want to leave. Anyway, so Fairy Tale is a fantasy series set in a fictional world called Earthland. In Earthland, a small portion of the population are capable of using magic, and they're called wizards. Many of these wizards come together to form guilds, where they experience camaraderie and go out on jobs. No wizarding guild in the Kingdom of Fury is as infamous as Fairy Tale, whose wizards are infamous for causing quite a bit of collateral damage when they go out on missions. And no Fairy Tale wizard is as infamous as Natsu Dragneel, the fire dragon slayer who was raised by the dragon Igneel. Natsu begins the series traveling Fury with his Exceed companion Happy, looking for Igneel, who has gone missing. In the first chapter, Natsu meets a young celestial spirit mage or wizard named Lucy, and after an adventure together, Natsu invites Lucy to join him in Fairy Tale. And quickly they form a team that also grows to include the strongest woman in the guild, Urza Scarlet, who has the magical ability to change out magical armors and associated weapons, and Grateful Buster, an ice make wizard. Later on, Wendy, as young Sky Dragon Slayer, joins the main cast, as does her Exceed companion, Carla. Well, in this case, Carla's more of Wendy's guardian than companion. So, to start off where I ended last week's discussion. So, Fairy Tale is composed of a number of story arcs, and the volume that I'm going to start with, 19, continues a storyline that I ended last week's episode with, and that is the Oresin Seis arc. So, at the beginning of the Oresin Seis arc, which started in volume 16 and runs through the early chapters of volume 20, is about 6 incredibly powerful wizards who have come together to form a dark guild. They are Brain the leader, his son Midnight, Cobra, Racer, Hot Eye, and Angel. The Oresin Seis is part of a loose alliance of dark guilds called the Balam Alliance. At the beginning of the storyline, Fairy Tale joins in an alliance with Blue Pegasus, Lemia Scale, and Kate Shelter to take down the Oresin Seis. And they are, and so the Oresin Seis is after a magical artifact called Nirvana. And so at the first encounter between the two sides, the Alliance is soundly defeated, and Wendy is kidnapped so that she can resurrect Jalal, a character who was a previous main antagonist during the Terror of Heaven arc and was a looming antagonist for much of the early uh, story arcs. However, Jalal is amnesiac and quickly joins the side of the Alliance against Orestian Says. So, after many battles, gradually the Alliance triumphs over the Orestian Says. Um, and However, the Orestian Says also form a suppression magic that keep a split personality of brains suppressed. And with them all defeated, this second personality takes over as the true main antagonist of the series. And this character is called Zero. And his fight with Natsu is amazing. Oh yeah, really love that. It's really good. Oh, and then it's really amazing, this fight. And then the fight concludes in volume 20. Okay, let's move you. So, once the Orestian Says are defeated and Navran destroyed, there's a bit of a wrap up. The new Magic Council arrives to arrest the Orestian Says and Jalal. And the truth is revealed about Kate Shelter, which leaves Wendy alone. Wendy started off as a Kate Shelter wizard, but she quickly joins Fairy Tale along with Carla. And so the next chapters in volume 20 is mostly Welcome to Fairy Tale Wendy and Carla, as well as Welcome Home Gildarts, the strongest wizard of the guild. At the end of volume 20 and going through volume 24 is the Edalus arc. So it is revealed that when Wendy was a child, she was directed to Kate Shelter by somebody who looks like Jalal. This Jalal is actually Mystigan, who later became a fairy tale wizard. And this Jalal is revealed to be from another world called Edalus. Now, in Earthland, magic is plentiful. 10% of the population are innately magical, and magic is just everywhere. That's not the case in Edalus. In Edalus, barring the Exceed, all magic is more of a finite resource, and the magic is running out. To stave off this eventuality, the King of Edalus enacted a plan called Anima, which opens portals from Edalus to Earthland and then sucks up magic from Earthland into Edalus and transforming that magic into lacrima crystals that can then be processed. And the Edalus arc opens with a giant anima sucking up Fairy Tale and the entirety of Magnolia, leaving only initially Wendy, Natsu, Happy, and Carla as the only ones who have not been sucked up. So the four travel to Edalus, encounter the Edalus of Fairy Tale, and proceed to the capital. Before that, they meet Lucy, who, through one of her celestial spirits, was not sucked in either, and at first is the only member of the group who can use her powers. However, they are captured and split up, with Happy and Carla being sent to Extalia, the land of the Exceeds. Natsu and Wendy are tortured to extract their Dragon Slayer power because that has some uses. And Lucy is going to be executed. However, Carla and Happy rescue Lucy, and that's when the King of Edelus reveals his actual plan, which is to take the giant lacrima that contains Fairy Tale and all of Magnolia, so several tens of thousands of people, and smash it into Extalia, where the Exceeds live. And this will basically rain down a significant amount of magic onto the surface of Edelus. So Lucy, Happy, and Carla are recaptured, and that's when they are saved by the Earthland, Grey, and Urza. And so it's revealed that Gajeel, another Dragon Slayer who's joined Fairy Tale, was also spared being sent through the enema. And he was brought to Edelus by the Edelus Jalal and given the ability to use his powers like Lucy was. And he freed Urza and Grey, and then sets about to try to free the rest of Magnolia from their lacrima crystals once everybody splits up. So during the split up, Carla and Wendy go to Extalia to try to convince the Exceed to escape or to evacuate. Happy takes Gajeel to the Magnolia Lacrima, where they fight Panther Lily, a giant Exceed who's defected to the humans, or forcibly defected. Urza has many battles with her counterpart who serves the royal army, and Natsu, Lucy, and Grey fight various other members of the royal forces in a ridiculous theme park that probably wastes way too much magic, which is basically Edelus's problem, is they waste too much magic. But anyway, and so gradually all of the fights go on, and the three Dragon Slayers fight a mechanized robo-dragon piloted by the King of Edelus. When Jalal's plan works, which is that he reverses the anima and sends all of the magic in Edelus to Earthland, leaving just humans in Edelus. So that was the Edelus arc, which again concludes in volume 24. So the rest of volume 24 sees the Exceed going to find land of their own now that they're in Earthland, and Panther Lily and one more carryover from Edelus joining Fairy Tale. Excuse me. At the end of volume 24, Master Makarov declares that there's going to be a promotion trial for S-Class that will take place at the Fairy Tale Holy Island of Sirius Island. And the 8 selected guild members are Natsu, Grey, Elfman, Kana, Levi, Juvia, and Mest, and Freed. And they are allowed to bring a companion along. So Natsu takes Happy, Grey takes Loki, Kana takes Lucy, Levi takes Gajeel, Juvia takes Lasana, Meth takes Wendy, and Elfman takes Evergreen because Free takes Big Slow. And so the first part of this arc involves them trying to earn promotion through a first round that is either based on luck, skill against an incredibly strong opponent, the three remaining as class of wizards, or a battle between prospective teams. And then the second part is to find the grave of the first master of fairy tale, Mavis. However, that's when the Dark Guild Grimoire Heart launches an invasion of Sirius because, unbeknownst to Fairy Tale, also on the island is a young man who is revealed to be Zeref, who will ultimately become one of the two main antagonists of Fairy Tale. And so the rest of this arc is a war between Fairy Tale and Grimoire Heart. Initially, the master of Grimoire Heart, Hades, takes down Makarov, and much of the arc is devoted to Fairy Tale's battles with his elite forces, the Seven Kin of Purgatory, who are the cover models for Volume 26. And the battles go back and forth. Some members of the Seven Kin, namely Azuma, initially are victorious in their battles against Fairy Tale before ultimately falling. This is also true of Rusty Rose, while others like Cain and Zencro and Capricorn, Zoldio possessing Capricorn, and to an extent Marudi, are all defeated in their initial engagements. So I picked Volume 26 to show you because I really enjoyed the fight between Rusty Rose and Ever and Elfman. Although the fight also between Azuma and Mary Jane is also really good as well. Although not nearly as good as Azuma versus Urza. And there's Zeref. So the thing with Zeref is that initially it was believed that he was dead, and then revealed that he was merely sleeping. And then that no, actually he's fully aware of who he is. It's just he has a curse. That when he values life, he cannot control his powers, and his powers are relatively weak. But when he doesn't value life, his powers are in their full force, and he is incredibly powerful. But, yeah. And just that is one amazing image. So eventually, Fairy Tale manages to defeat the Seven Kin of Purgatory and the other commander of Grimoire Heart before there's a split. Half of the available forces guard the wounded, and this includes Freed, Bixlow, Levy, and Lizana. Meanwhile, Natsu, Lucy, Gray, Urza, Wendy, and the Exceed team up to go take on Hades. The Exceed split off to find the power source to Grimoire Hearts' flying battleship. But hoo boy, that's an amazing fight. And Then once everything's said and done, Grimoire Heart's defeated and leave the island, and there's a post-battle celebration when Acnologia shows up. Now, Acnologia is sort of foreshadowed before the Edalus arc, and Acnologia is the second of the two of the main antagonists of Fairy Tail, or more the final antagonists of Fairy Tail. That for the rest of the series going forward, Zeref and Acnologia are the two looming threats that have to be dealt with at the end, with Acnologia ultimately being the final villain. Because Zeref falls about a volume or so before, well, yeah, it would be a volume before the final battle, which is devoted to taking down Acnologia. So, at the end of the series Island arc, you would think Hiro Mashima went there, but he doesn't. Very few characters, particularly on the heroic side of things, actually do die. Very few. And no, he does not go there. However, there is a time skip. So, midway through volume 30, and continuing for most of 31, there's a 7-year time skip when our main characters return after being in suspended animation for 7 years and have to reorient themselves to this new world where Fairy Tail is much diminished. And the only way they can really get back to where they were quickly is by competing in the Grand Magic Games, which is sort of Earthland Fury's version of the Olympics. So how it works is there's a preliminary round where a large number of teams have tried to make it to the stadium in a certain time limit, and the 8 teams that make it advance to the actual Grand Magic Games. So initially, it looks like Fairy Tail's team is going to be our main cast. However, Wendy is injured and can't compete, and so Elfman takes her place for the first part of the games. So the games take place over the course of 5 days. Each day is devoted, except for the final day, is devoted to a competition phase and then a battles phase, which is determined by random draw. At the same time, Jalal, who has escaped prison with the help of a reformed Old-Tier and Marudi and formed an independent guild, asked Fairy Tail to look into something mysterious going on with the games, which comes into the fore later on in the arc. So the Grand Magic Games begin in the later chapters of Volume 31 and run through Volume 40. So it's a long arc and rather complicated. So I'm only going to focus on what Fairy Tail does in this arc. So the first game is hide and seek. And then the battles, Lucy is defeated by Flare, who's a member. Okay, well, guess I should tell you who the other 7 teams are. So our team comes in, so the Fairy Tail comes in at 8th. And then it's Quattro Cerberus, Blue Pegasus, Lemia Scale, Mermaid Hill, Raven Tail, which is foundation of Makarov's son and Laxus's grandfather, or Laxus's father. A second Fairy Tail team. They're the only one that has a repeat. So this Fairy Tail Team B is composed of Laxus, Mira Jane, Juvia, Gajil, and Earthland Jalal masquerading as Edilus Jalal, who went by the name of Mystigan. And then the first seed is Sabretooth, who are the strongest guild in Fury at this moment. So over the course of the games, initially the main competition, the main conflict is between the Fairy Tail teams and Raventail. But later it shifts to Fairy Tail and Sabretooth as Raventail's chicanery gets the better of them. So the first round is the comp day is hide and seek, basically, and then the battles. Fairy Tail doesn't come out very well as Lucy falls to Raventail's cheating when she faces Flare, and Mystigan or Jalal is defeated by Jura through an assist from Altair and Marudi. The second day, things improve for Fairy Tail, as however the competition is a chariot race on giant chariots, and for some dumb reason, the Dragon Slayers decide to compete. So Natsu, Gagil, and Sabretooth Sting all run on or have a race on moving vehicles. And a running gag in Fairy Tail is that advanced Dragon Slayers have an extreme case of motion sickness. What any of the three were thinking, I have no idea, but it was kind of funny. And then in the battles, Fairy Tail makes a comeback as both Mary Jane and Elfman defeat their opponents. And there are wagers made, which... and then on the third day, Urza is Urza, and it is amazing. And Kana has a really good showing as well as she replaces Mystigan. In the battle portion, well, Laxus does Laxus, and Wendy fights to a draw with Sharia from Lamia's Scale. On the fourth day, the tensions between Fairy Tail and Sabretooth heat up as Minerva of Sabretooth does a number on Lucy in the pool battle. And then, however, in the competition, the fight portion, with Raventail being disqualified, Fairy Tail is merged into two teams. And Natsu and Gigil fight the two Dragon Slayers of Sabretooth, Sting and Rogue. And whoo boy, is that a fight. And then the final day of the Grand Magic Games is a battle royale of all 5 teams, of all 5-person teams. With once the one team or one person outstanding, the team with the most points wins. And could also win the whole games. And whoo boy, that was amazing. Just amazing. And I did not get the one I wanted. Dang it. So this is Team Sabretooth. And then that's Team Fairy Tail. Now, you might be noticing where's Natsu? Well, something that was going on with the Grand Magic Games is that there's a conspiracy that magic is being leached from the competitors into a magical device called the Eclipse Gate, which is the idea initially is to go back in time to assassinate Zero before he becomes Zero, the Black Wizard. However, that's actually going to try a different approach against Acnologia, an invasion of dragons. And so Lucy and celestial spirit keys are key to the Eclipse device, and the reason why is revealed later in the series at the end. So Lucy is captured by the royal army because they are behind this scheme. And so while one fairy tale team is taking out, competing in the final games of the game, Natsu, Mara Jane, Wendy, and the Exceed are going to rescue Lucy. And ultimately, Fairy Tale wins in one hell of a way, which I wish I'd actually pulled that volume to show you, because that is an amazing scene. And then it's sort of the scheme behind the Grand Magic Games is focused on as it's actually a con job, that the Eclipse, which is a time travel device, actually allows dragons to come from 400 years in the past to attack. And so all of the guilds team up to fight these dragons. And Natsu sort of leads the dragon slayers into fighting the dragons, as well as the villain who's been manipulating things. And so this all wraps up in volume 40. And then the later part of volume 40 up through really ends in 41 is this quick arc where the team answers a call from a wizard saint to figure out why a village of giants has been frozen. And there they fight some treasure hunters as well as a dark guild that includes a former leading member of Sabretooth, Minerva, who has a score to settle with Urza. So this is round 2 of their extended fight. And then from volume 42 through 49, which I haven't gotten to yet for this reread, is the Tartarus arc, where the third portion of the Balam Alliance takes center stage, who are trying to enact a plan that will wipe out magic from the continent of Ishgal, and Fairy Tale are the only ones who can stop them. And I think what I'm going to do is I will talk a bit more about the Tartarus arc next Friday when I do the final part of my Fairy Tale wrap-up. So look forward to that on Friday evening. So anyway, BookTube, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this video for now. So have a great afternoon and stay safe. And I will hopefully see you tomorrow with a book haul. So look forward to that.